I graduated from college last week and landed my first real job with a salary that blew my mind. Finally, after years of struggling, I could afford my own apartment and start building a life for myself. I decided to visit my family to share the good news, despite my strained relationship with my father and my half-brother Marcus. Something inside me hoped that maybe this time my success would make my dad proud. Little did I know what awaited me in that house. Before I dive deeper into what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how I handled what came next. My mother died when I was 12 years old. The cancer took her quickly, leaving me alone with a father who never really knew how to be a parent. Within a year, Dad remarried a woman named Tiffany, who was 15 years his junior. Their relationship lasted barely 2 years before they divorced, but not before they had Marcus, my half-brother. Growing up in our household meant constantly living in the shadow of my little brother. From the moment Marcus could walk and talk, my father treated him like a prince while I was merely the help. Dad never hid his favoritism. When Marcus received new video games and expensive clothes, I got lectures about being responsible and appreciating what I had. When Marcus failed his classes, Dad hired tutors. When I brought home straight, as Dad would shrug and say, "That is what you are supposed to do." I started working when I was 15, bussing tables at a local diner after school and on weekends. By 16, I was working nearly 30 hours a week while maintaining my grades. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Dad made it clear early on that if I wanted to go to college, I would need to pay for it myself. Meanwhile, he started a college fund for Marcus when he was just 5 years old. The summer before my senior year of high school, Dad lost his job. He came to me with his hand out asking to borrow the $3,000 I had saved for my first semester of community college. I reluctantly agreed, believing his promise to pay me back within a month. That money disappeared into the black hole of our family finances, which somehow always included the newest gaming system for Marcus, but never enough for our electricity bill. I worked 2 jobs that senior year, sleeping only 4 hours most nights. I graduated with honors but attended the ceremony alone because Dad had taken Marcus to a baseball game that day. He really wanted to go, was all the explanation I received via text message. Despite everything, I managed to piece together enough money for community college through scholarships, financial aid, and brutal work hours. I transferred to State University after 2 years, taking out loans and working full-time to cover what financial aid did not. Throughout those years, Dad occasionally called, usually when he needed something. Once he needed $800 for Marcus's school trip. Another time it was $300 for sports equipment. Marcus grew into a mirror image of our father. Entitled, lazy, and perpetually convinced the world owed him something. By the time he turned 16, he had never worked a day in his life, yet somehow always had the latest iPhone and designer clothes. Dad enabled his every whim, while simultaneously complaining about being broke. I poured everything into my education, graduating with a degree in computer science. The job market was competitive, but my internships and project portfolio helped me land a position at a respected tech firm with a starting salary that made all those sleepless nights worth it. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was breaking free from the cycle of scarcity and manipulation that defined my childhood. Foolishly, I thought my father would finally be proud. I imagined him acknowledging my hard work, maybe even apologizing for the years of neglect and favoritism. Deep down, I still craved his approval, that validation every child seeks from their parent. So I drove to the old neighborhood, with hope in my heart, ready to share my success with my family. The house looked worse than I remembered. The paint was peeling, the lawn overgrown, and several shingles missing from the roof. I knocked on the door instead of using my old key, feeling like a visitor rather than someone who had lived there for 18 years. Dad answered, wearing the same faded bathrobe he had owned since I was in middle school. His hair had more gray than I remembered, and his face showed the deep lines of someone who perpetually complained about life's unfairness. "Cassius," he said flatly, not bothering to hide his surprise. "Been a while." I forced a smile. "Hey, Dad. Thought I would stop by and catch up." He stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like old pizza and unwashed laundry. Empty soda cans and fast food wrappers littered the coffee table. Marcus was sprawled on the couch controller and hand-eyes fixed on the massive television that dominated the living room, a television I knew for certain Dad could not afford. "Look who decided to remember where he came from," Dad announced to Marcus, who barely glanced up from his game. Whatever Marcus mumbled, returning to his virtual world. At 20, my brother had the emotional maturity of a teenager and the ambition of a sloth. He had dropped out of high school in his junior year, promising to get his GED but never following through. From what I gathered during our infrequent communications, he spent his days gaming and his nights hanging out with friends who shared his aversion to responsibility. "I brought dinner," I said, holding up the bags of takeout I had picked up on the way. It was from the steakhouse Dad used to talk about going to for special occasions but could never afford. That got Marcus's attention. He paused his game and finally acknowledged my presence with a nod. Dad cleared space on the dining table by shoving mail and empty containers to the side. We ate in uncomfortable silence at first. I tried to make conversation, asking about the neighbors and family friends, but received only short, disinterested responses. Finally, when we were almost finished with the meal, I shared my news. "So I graduated last week. Got a job at Horizon Tech starting next month." Dad looked up from his plate for the first time. "Horizon. Huh? They pay well. Not congratulations. Not I am proud of you." His first question was about money. "The salary is good," I said cautiously. "Enough for me to get my own place near the office." Dad and Marcus exchanged a look that made my stomach tighten. "How good exactly?" Dad pressed. I hesitated before answering. $85,000 a year to start with bonuses and benefits. The atmosphere in the room shifted immediately. Dad sat up straighter. Marcus put down his fork and gave me his full attention. I could almost see the dollar signs in their eyes. "Well," Dad said, his voice suddenly warmer, "that is great news, son. Really great news." For a moment I felt a flicker of the validation I had been seeking. Then Dad cleared his throat and continued. "You know, Marcus has been thinking about going back to school. Private college. He needs the right environment, not like those community colleges." I nodded slowly, already sensing where this was heading. "And this house needs some serious work," Dad continued. "The roof, the plumbing. Been putting it off because, well, money has been tight since I got laid off again." "I thought you were working at the hardware store," I said. Dad waved dismissively. "Part-time only. Not enough to live on, especially with Marcus's needs." Marcus nodded solemnly, as if his needs included food and medicine rather than video games and junk food. "So here is what we are thinking." Dad leaned forward, all business now. 80% of your salary goes to Marcus for his education and living expenses. The other 20% comes to me for household repairs and bills. It is that simple. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I let out a nervous laugh. "You are joking, right?" Dad's face hardened. "Do I look like I am joking? This is what family does. You support each other." "Support goes both ways, Dad," I said, my voice quavering slightly. "When have either of you ever supported me?" "We gave you a roof over your head," Dad snapped. "Food in your belly, clothes on your back." "The bare minimum required by law," I pointed out. "Meanwhile, I worked since I was 15 to pay for my own education while you started college funds for Marcus." "Your brother has different needs, Dad," said the familiar refrain I had heard throughout my childhood. Marcus finally spoke up. "You always had it easy, Cassius. Everything comes naturally to you. I have to work twice as hard just to keep up." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Marcus had never worked hard at anything in his life. "I have already told Marcus you would help him," Dad said, as if that settled the matter. "He has his heart set on Westlake University. Tuition is $40,000 a year, plus he will need an apartment near campus, spending money a new laptop." As Dad rattled off the list of expenses, I realized this was not a spur-of-the-moment request. They had been planning this, waiting for me to finish college and start earning money. In their minds, my purpose was not to build my own life, but to fund theirs. "That is not going to happen," I said firmly. "I worked hard for this job, this salary. I have my own student loans to pay off, my own life to build." Dad's expression darkened. This is not a request, Cassius. This is what you are going to do. Your brother deserves a chance at a good life. And I do not, I asked, my voice rising. After everything I have sacrificed. Stop being so selfish, Dad spat. You are just like your mother. Always thinking about yourself. That comment about my mother struck like a physical blow. Mom had been the most selfless person I knew, working 2 nursing jobs to support us, while Dad bounced between employment and finding himself. She had died exhausted, giving everything to a family that never appreciated her enough. Do not bring Mom into this, I warned, my hands shaking with anger. Then stop acting like her, Dad shot back. Always the martyr, always keeping score. Family helps family without counting the cost. Marcus stood up his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. You owe us, Cassius. After all we have done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Marcus? I asked. Name one thing. One time you supported me, or helped me, or even showed up for me. My brother's face flushed. I was always there for you. When I graduated high school and you and Dad went to a baseball game instead. When I got into state university and neither of you returned my calls for 3 weeks. When you think you are so perfect, Marcus sneered. Mr. Straight A's, Mr. Big Shot job. Some of us were not born with all the advantages you had. The sheer delusion of his statement left me speechless. What advantages? The advantage of being emotionally neglected. The advantage of working myself to exhaustion while trying to maintain good grades. Dad stood up and jabbed a finger at me. If you do not agree to help your brother, I will make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I will call your Aunt Linda, your cousins, everyone at church. I will tell them how you abandoned your family the moment you got some money. Go ahead, I said, finding strength in my anger. Tell them. Tell them how you never came to a single parent-teacher conference. Tell them how you borrowed my college savings and never paid it back. Tell them how you spent money on video games for Marcus while I was working night shifts at the gas station to pay for textbooks. Dad's face reddened. You ungrateful little. I am not finished, I interrupted. You want 80% of my salary. Show me the receipts for everything you ever spent on me after Mom died. Show me evidence of all this support you claim to have given me. A tense silence fell over the dining room. Dad and Marcus exchanged glances, communicating in that silent language they had developed over years of conspiring. We do not need to prove anything to you, Dad finally said. And it does not matter anyway. I already told people you would be helping. I already made plans. What plans? I asked, suddenly suspicious. Dad shifted uncomfortably. I might have borrowed some money. For the roof, and Marcus's gaming computer, and a few other things. How much I demanded. 20,000, he mumbled. From Big Mike. My blood ran cold. Big Mike was a loan shark who charged interest rates that should have been illegal. He was known for breaking kneecaps when people could not pay. You borrowed $20,000 from Big Mike, I asked incredulously. With what collateral? Dad would not meet my eyes. I told him my son just got a big job at Horizon Tech. That you would be handling the payments. The betrayal was so profound I felt physically ill. Without my knowledge or consent, my father had essentially sold me into financial servitude to a loan shark. You did what I whispered. Instead of showing any remorse, Dad pulled out his phone. I am calling your Aunt Linda right now, and Pastor Jim, and everyone else. I will tell them all what a selfish, ungrateful son I raised. As he dialed, I sat in stunned silence. I could hear my aunt's voice answering. Dad immediately launched into his prepared narrative, tears in his voice as he described how his successful son was refusing to help his struggling family. The performance was Oscar-worthy. He wept as he described Marcus's desperate desire to improve himself through education. He painted himself as a devoted father who had sacrificed everything for his children, only to be abandoned in his time of need. While he performed for our relatives, Marcus leaned toward me. Just accept it, brother. It is going to happen whether you like it or not. Dad already signed you up as guarantor on some of his loans. Your credit score is tied to ours now. In that moment, something inside me broke. The last threads of hope that we could ever be a real family, that my father might someday see me as more than an ATM, that my brother might grow into a decent human being. Those illusions shattered completely. But in their place grew something stronger. Clarity, determination, righteous anger. I started laughing. Not a joyful laugh, but the kind that comes when a situation is so absurd, so beyond reason, that humor is the only sane response. Dad paused mid-sentence on his call with Aunt Linda. "What is so funny?" he demanded, covering the phone. I stood up, suddenly calm despite the storm raging within me. "I am leaving and not giving you a dime. Pay your own bills. It is that simple." Dad's face contorted with rage. He ended the call and threw his phone on the table. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me," I replied, my voice steady. "I am not giving you or Marcus a penny. Not 20%, not 80%, not $1. I worked for my money, and I am going to use it to build my life. You two can figure out your own problems." Dad's reaction was nuclear. His face turned purple as he screamed obscenities, spittle flying from his lips. He slammed his fist on the table so hard that plates jumped and glasses tipped over. "You ungrateful piece of garbage," he roared. "After everything I have done for you, Marcus joined in calling me selfish, heartless, cruel." The verbal onslaught was vicious, designed to trigger the guilt and obligation that had controlled me for years. But this time their words bounced off me like rain on a window. I walked upstairs to my old bedroom, while they continued shouting threats and insults. Most of my belongings were long gone, taken to college or discarded, but a few boxes remained in the closet. I quickly sorted through them, taking only what mattered: old photos of my mother, a few childhood keepsakes, my birth certificate. In the back of the closet, I found a box of my mother's papers that Dad had never bothered to go through. Inside were her journals, letters, and financial records. Something made me take it all. As I was about to leave, I noticed a stack of mail on the nightstand that had my name on it. Credit card statements, loan applications, utility bills. I grabbed those too, suspicion growing in my gut. Dad was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, blocking my exit. "You are not leaving until we settle this," he growled. "Move," I said quietly. Or what he challenged, puffing out his chest. I sidestepped him easily. "I am not fighting you, Dad. I am just leaving." That infuriated him more than any confrontation would have. He followed me to the door, hurling threats all the way. "If you walk out that door, do not ever come back," he shouted. "You are dead to me, you hear? Dead." I turned to face him one last time. "I have been dead to you since Mom died. The only difference now is that I know it." I drove straight to a hotel, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Once in my room, I examined the mail I had taken. My suspicions were confirmed. Dad had been using my identity for years, opening credit cards in my name, taking out personal loans, even setting up utility accounts. My credit score, which I had worked so hard to build, was in shambles. The next morning, I visited a lawyer who specialized in identity theft. Then I went to the police station to file a report. Finally, I contacted every credit bureau to dispute the fraudulent accounts and place a freeze on my credit. It was painful to take legal action against my own father, but I had no choice. The lawyer explained that without formally reporting the identity theft, I would be responsible for all the debt he had accumulated in my name. I found an affordable apartment near my new job and moved in with the few possessions I had. I changed my phone number and email address. I informed my new employer about the situation in case my father tried to contact me there. For weeks, messages poured in from relatives and family friends, most siding with my father after hearing his version of events. I responded to each one with the same simple statement: "I love you and respect your perspective, but there are two sides to every story. I hope someday you will be open to hearing mine." Some reached out again, curious. To those who genuinely wanted to understand, I explained the years of financial and emotional manipulation, the identity theft, the unreasonable demands. A few apologized for judging me. Others maintained their distance, unable to reconcile the devoted father. My dad pretended to be with the man I described. Through it all, I focused on building my new life. I worked hard at my job, impressing my supervisors with my dedication. I made new friends who knew nothing of my family drama and accepted me for who I was, not what I could give them. As for Big Mike, I sent him a certified letter explaining that any agreements my father had made in my name were fraudulent and unenforceable. I included copies of the police report and identity theft documentation. I never heard from him, though I later learned he had visited my father to collect his debt through other means. 6 months have passed since that fateful dinner. My apartment is small but comfortable, decorated with second-hand furniture and a few carefully chosen new pieces. My job is going well. I recently received my first performance bonus, which I split between my student loan payments and a savings account I call my Freedom Fund. The most unexpected development has been finding a support group for adult children of manipulative parents. Sitting in a circle with others who understand the unique pain of family betrayal has been more healing than I could have imagined. Through their stories, I recognized patterns I had never been able to name before. The guilt trips, the gaslighting, the conditional love that was never really love at all. In that group, I found more than support. I found friendship with people who understand boundaries and respect. We celebrate each other's victories and comfort each other through setbacks. They have become the family I choose, bound by mutual respect rather than obligation or blood. I have heard through the grapevine that my father and Marcus are facing serious financial consequences. The house is in foreclosure. Dad's car was repossessed. The creditors he had kept at bay with promises of my money have come calling. I did reach out to Marcus once, not with money but with an opportunity. A friend's company was hiring for an entry-level position that required no experience or education. I forwarded him the application link with a simple message. If you want to build your own life, here is a starting point. He never responded to the message, but I heard from a cousin that he did apply and got the job. He quit after 2 weeks, claiming the work was beneath him. Some lessons can only be learned through experience, and some people never learn them at all. As for me, I am still healing, still learning what healthy relationships look like. I have good days and bad days. Sometimes I wake up angry at my father for all he took from me. Other times I feel sad for the family I wish we could have been. But mostly I feel free. Free from the obligation to fix problems I did not create. Free from the crushing weight of unreasonable expectations. Free to define success on my own terms, to build a life that reflects my values rather than someone else's demands. The journey has taught me that family is not about blood or obligation. It is about mutual respect, genuine care, and supporting each other's growth. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who drain your spirit, even when those people share your DNA. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who wanted more than you could give? Leave a comment below and share your experience. Your story might help someone else find the courage to stand up for themselves. And if you found value in my story, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more real-life experiences and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening. And remember, choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary.